Yes, so thank you, madam, for the very kind introduction. So the topic allotted to me today is non-responding keratitis, infectious keratitis without perforation. I have no financial interest to disclose. Before the talk, I would like to request everybody to go through this article. It is openly available in the iJournal. So this came from the Bascom Palmer group, which also, like India, deal with a fairly large number of infectious keratitis. One of the very few centers in the US to do so. So in this, the question in the article was what is causing the corneal ulcer and what are the strategies for unresponsive corneal ulceration. So Dr. Vyas has comprehensively covered all the points. So I'll just present a few algorithms in the article and then move to the management. So they have divided the patients presenting at their clinic into two categories, high risk and low risk. High risk is the patients who have history of trauma or contact lens user or poor ocular surface or any systemic comorbidity. And low risk is patients just having the keratitis, nothing else. So a new patient whom you think has infectious keratitis has come to your clinic. So you just see the cornea and the sclera. If the sclera is involved, do the scrapings of both and rule out any systemic disorder. If there is significant thinning at presentation, you have to do the scraping and start empirical therapy. You may end up using some form of tissue adhesive, or even if more severe, you have to do keratoplasty. So again, you see whether it is high risk. So high risk I will deal in the next slide. If the patient is low risk, but not much of thinning, so you again do the scraping, complete microbiology and add on the advanced investigations if needed and if you have access to them. Then two things can happen. The patient is improving. So once the patient is improving, you just adjust the frequency of the drops as per the response. Steroids are usually not given in infective keratitis. Please keep that in mind. But if there is no clinical improvement, so you have to question everything. You have to question your diagnosis, your findings. You have to also question whether the patient is complying to your instructions. Again, you rescrape, you check the sensitivities. If you can find the organism, you modify the treatment as per the sensitivity of the organism. In spite of that, if things are getting worse, then we have to move as per the topics discussed in this instruction course. So now you have high risk patient, which I have mentioned before. Again, the similar principles, you have to do the culture, you start the broad spectrum antibiotics. If you see improvement, you see the organism, you may change as per the report, and you finally have the resolution of the keratitis. If there is no improvement, again, you question everything like before. You are not rescrape, still you may not find anything. If you don't find anything and the keratitis is worsening, you have to think of aggressive measures. And already there is a patient who was diagnosed elsewhere, proven infective pathology. They have tried and treated, but it is not happening. They have referred to you. There is no clinical improvement. So depending on the presentation, if it is very severe, you have to go for aggressive treatment. If it is stable, you do scrapings after stopping the antibiotics for a period of at least 2 to 3 days. You do advanced tests if they are available to you. You try and rule out any other organisms or mixed infection, including virus. If you can identify it, yes, very good, you can start the treatment accordingly. So without perforation, you have these management options. One, you can just plainly debride or do a very superficial keratectomy of the ulcer plaque. You can combine it with a tarsorrhaphy. You can do a AC lavage of the exudates and give intracameral, intrastromal, or both antifungals. You can also do a carbolic acid cautery, which was practiced in the olden days, but it is still useful. I am using it in certain cases. You can do a conjunctival hooding or a conjunctivoplasty or a pedicle graft if the tissue is not available. You can always do a tissue adhesive with a BCL. It is not only for perforated cases, but you can, if you're anticipating perforation or severe thinning, you can still apply it for giving tectonic support. And you can also do the activated collagen cross-linking, but I do not have any personal experience with it. So I will go through each of the modalities. So this video is showing this person presented to us with 3 weeks of history of this non-resolving keratitis. He was treated elsewhere. So I saw this densely adherent plaque on the slit lamp. I decided not to scrape on the slit lamp. but instead I took him in the OR, and you can see it is so easy to find a plane of dissection because the tissue is edematous. You just lift off slowly this entire plaque from the ocular surface. Now you are left with this defect on which if you see any small infiltrate, you can apply a small drop of carbolic acid and do the cautery. If you anticipate healing problems, you can do a tarsorrhaphy at the conclusion of this debridement or the keratectomy. So any unhealthy tissue you have to remove gently, but on the slit lamp you rule out any thinning before you undertake this procedure. Then this is the courtesy of my colleague in the hospital, Dr. Soham. So this patient presented in the lockdown last year with this ulcer, which has almost healed, but there is still some activity in the stroma. And this gross thinning and occurred. There is still no perforation. The CDAL was negative, but since no tissue was available, the patient had come from Bangladesh. So we had no option to do but to do a conjunctival hooding. So I'll just show you the intraoperative pictures. So in which you just release a pedicle, vascularized pedicle of the conjunctiva, advance it over the infected area and suture it with interrupted nylon sutures. So this is at the end. This is at the end of 1 month after the surgery, where there is a nice scarring, and the conjunctiva has grown over the area where the iris was almost going to prolapse, and the tectonic stability is achieved. Now we'll come to the role of intrastromal antifungals, in which this patient with a history of 2 weeks of non-responding ulcer, we had done the scrapings and the report came out to be positive for fusarium. You can see this deep ulcer. The surface is not so much affected, but if you see in the slit section on the right, it is beautifully shown that the infiltrate is involving the deeper layers of the stroma. We all know that the penetrability of the topical antifungals is very poor. So in this case, we decided to go ahead and inject intrastromal voriconazole so that to achieve a faster resolution of the keratitis. This is the anterior segment OCT taken before the injection, just to rule out any thinning and note the extent of the infiltrate. This is at post-op day 10 after the injection, single injection of intrastromal antifungal, that is voriconazole. So a lot of resolution has occurred. The scarring has also started to form. So we kept the patient on topical and systemic antifungals for 2 weeks, and complete resolution was achieved without resorting to any more invasive procedure. Now we come to the role of anterior chamber lavage combined with an intrastromal injection and an intracameral injection of antifungals. This gentleman was referred from one of our peripheral branches with a history of non-resolving keratitis for 4 weeks. They had done the scraping and found out a fungal etiology, and he was sent to us. So at presentation, it was looking like this after 4 weeks of intensive topical therapy. The hypopion was not resolving, neither was the stromal infiltrate, which was deep. So initially we decided the patient would be taken up for a tarsorrhaphy along with the injection of intrastromal antifungals. For some reason, the surgery could not be performed and the patient was lost to follow-up. But somehow the ulcer has worsened. Even if the infiltrate is reduced slightly, there is gross thinning, as you can see in the slit lamp section. So the patient did underwent a tarsorrhaphy and an AC lavage. This is after 3 weeks of the surgery. The tarsorrhaphy was released. The thinning was also taken care of. The collagenolasis was prevented, and there is nice scarring. This photograph is 3 months after the entire procedure was done. Now we'll come to the role of tarsorrhaphy in the management of non-responsive keratitis. This lady was again referred to us from another institution with a history of non-healing ulcer. She was treated with a wide variety, including antivirals, because somewhere it was mentioned that she had prior histories of such episodes. So here you can see a large PED. Because of the medicine toxicity, there is a hypopion. There is some stromal infiltrate seen above the edge of the PED. So we had a diagnostic dilemma here, and we could not know. There is scraping was a bit dicey because of the thinning. So we decided to do a tarsorrhaphy for this patient and also send the aqueous sample for a PCR, both for viral and fungal etiology. The PCR report came out to be positive for fungus. So this is at 29 days after the tarsorrhaphy, it was released. Still a learning point here, some infiltrate is still present. So the takeaway point here is do not stop the treatment at this stage. You have to keep on putting the antifungal drops till complete scarring is achieved in all the parts of the cornea. Now this is at post-op day 60. There is a definite change in the picture, and the part which was showing activity earlier at day 29 is also now fully scarred. So do not stop the treatment prematurely. Another gentleman who presented with this fungal ulcer with hypopyon not responding. This is day 7 of medical treatment. It has gone down. The hypopyon is still persisting. Day 21, almost healed, but now it has become a PD with a central infiltrate. At this stage, we decided to do a tarsorrhaphy, simple tarsorrhaphy. You can see 3 weeks after the tarsorrhaphy, no hypopyon, eye is almost white, and there is a nice scar which has formed. And the last case, I believe, this peripheral ulcer, again in the time of lockdown, not much of management options were available. Proven fungal on KOH 10, and finally the culture report also came to be positive for aspergillus. This was a streak hypopyon also in the anterior chamber. This is after 35 days with adequate topical antimicrobial antifungal therapy and a tarsorrhaphy as well to provide tectonic support. Nice scar has been achieved. So the take-home pearls are basically rethink and revisit your history taking, clinical examination, and also diagnosis if the ulcer is not responding. Sometimes foreign body is easily missed. Always evert the lead. You can use certain advanced techniques like PCR if you're in the diagnostic dilemma. Never ignore or forget the comorbidities, the ocular surface, and the status of the other eye. It may give you a clue. There can be a multi-drug or a pan-drug resistant or a mixed infection. Always be aware to this combination. You have to go for slightly aggressive techniques in non-responders. Herpetic keratitis is a great masquerader. It can resemble bacterial, fungal, and all other types of keratitis. So be aware for this, and always refer on time to avoid the end stage intervention. Thank you so much.